Ever wonder where your favorite dish really came from? Dive in with us as we unearth those unexpected eats that are proudly and surprisingly all-American. Number 15. German chocolate cake. You might hear German chocolate cake and think, yum, Bavarian treats. But, surprise, it's not even from Germany. Turns out, Samuel German, an English chocolatier, created a unique chocolate blend for the Baker's Chocolate Company in Massachusetts, and they branded it as Baker's German Sweet Chocolate. Then, fast forward to 1957, and Mrs. George Clay from Dallas, Texas, used this chocolate in a cake recipe. She named it German's Chocolate Cake, and it started getting popular. It got so popular, in fact, that even General Foods hopped on the bandwagon. And you know how gossip goes. Somewhere along the way, the S got lost, and now we know it as the German chocolate cake. Number 14. Chimichanga. They might sound and taste Mexican, but chimichangas are an American Southwest original with roots in Tucson, Arizona. The story goes that Monica Flynn, the founder of El Charro Cafe, which by the way is one of Tucson's OG Mexican spots, had a little kitchen mishap in 1922. She accidentally dropped a burrito into a deep fryer. As the burrito sizzled, she started to let out a famous Spanish curse word starting with chi, but caught herself midway and ended up yelling chimichanga, which is kind of like saying thingamabob in Spanish. Now, Macayo's Mexican Table in Phoenix says that Woody Johnson was the real inventor of the dish, and they've got a similar story. So, who knows? What we do know is that the chimichanga is proudly Arizonian and an American food icon. Number 13. Cuban sandwich. The Cuban sandwich, or as cool folks say, Cubano, has a pretty wild origin story. Way back, Cuba's locals were all about fish sandwiches with cassava bread. Then, the Spanish showed up and introduced ingredients like cheese, wheat bread, and pork. Fast forward to the 1800s, and the tobacco scene was booming with folks hopping between Cuba and Florida like it was a short walk to the corner store. These cigar factory peeps needed something scrumptious and quick for lunch. As cultures continued to collide, the Cubano as we know it today with crispy Cuban bread, tangy yellow mustard, roasted pork, ham, Swiss cheese, and pickles was born. Number 12. Haagen-Dazs ice cream. In the 1920s, young Ruben Mattis, a Polish-Jewish immigrant, began his journey in Brooklyn helping his uncle sell Italian ice. Over time, he expanded into selling ice cream sandwiches up in the Bronx. By the 1960s, Ruben had an idea. He wanted to introduce an ice cream that stood out, something richer and creamier than the standard fare. And the name? He opted for a Danish-sounding label. Maybe he was inspired by Denmark's quality dairy, or perhaps he wanted to honor the Danish heroes from World War II. Fun fact, the name doesn't quite translate in Danish. Those umlauts and Z's combos aren't typical, but it definitely gave the brand a unique touch. Number 11. Russian dressing. Ever heard of a condiment playing dress up? Well, there's this American sauce pretending to be from Russia. It's a mix of mayonnaise and ketchup, and sometimes a few other goodies are thrown in, like hot sauce or pickle relish. While some people say that its name might have originated from an early recipe with caviar, but these days the credit is given to James E. Coburn. This New Hampshire entrepreneur was ahead of the curve, selling this tasty blend from his store as far back as 1910. Quite the history, right? Number 10. Reuben sandwich. So, there's a bit of mystery about who really came up with the Reuben sandwich. It was either Reuben Kulikovsky, a Lithuanian-born grocer who, according to several stories, had a light bulb moment during a 1920s poker game, or it was NYC's own deli king, Arnold Reuben. The jury's still out, but honestly, whoever dreamt up this combo of corned beef, Swiss cheese, sauerkraut, and Russian dressing on rye bread, bravo! Number 9. English muffin. You might see English in its name and think, must be from across the pond, right? But apparently, English muffins are actually a New York City invention. Samuel Bath Thomas, an English chap who moved to NYC, is the genius behind them. And yup, he's the same Thomas from the well-known English Muffin Company. Drawing inspiration from the crumpets back home, he whipped up what he called a toaster crumpet. While they share similarities, unlike the traditional crumpet, these were sliced in half for a perfect toast. So, next time you have one, remember you're biting into a little piece of NYC history. Number 8. Spaghetti and meatballs. While the saucy dish is most associated with Italy, it's more of a New York City original thanks to Italian immigrants in the early 20th century. Now, sure, you might spot it on menus in Italy's big cities, but it's mainly there to appease American travelers. The first inkling of this recipe appeared courtesy of the National Pasta Association in the 1920s. Now, meatballs have tales from around the globe, from Swedish köttbullar to Turkish köftas, but those generously sized meatballs swimming in tomato sauce with spaghetti? That flavor-packed combination is all America's own culinary creation. Number 7. French dressing. In the heart of France, salads are usually dressed with a simple vinaigrette. But stateside, French dressing means a zesty concoction of ketchup, vinegar, sugar, Worcestershire sauce, and a medley of spices. The first to make a splash in the American market was Milani's 1890 French dressing, introduced around 1938. Why the French tag? That remains a culinary mystery. Number 6. California rolls. While sushi is undeniably a Japanese classic, some sushi rolls sport distinctly non-Japanese origins. Enter the California roll. Its true beginnings are a bit hazy. Both chefs from Los Angeles and Vancouver throw their hats in the ring claiming its invention. But if we're talking about documented claims, LA's own chef Ken Sousa has his version captured in a 1979 Associated Press article. What's unique? This roll tucks in an avocado, cucumber, and imitation crab with the seaweed snugly wrapped inside. A flip from traditional sushi where the nori confidently embraces the outside. And the Cali roll isn't the lone American twist on sushi. There's also the Boulder-flavored spicy tuna roll, the cream cheese-infused Philadelphia roll, and the colorful rainbow roll. Number 5. Fajitas. The name comes from the Spanish word faja, meaning strip, and although it screams Mexican cuisine, its roots are actually deep in Texas soil. The original fans of this dish, Tejano cattle ranchers, who enjoyed it as their on-the-go meal. When the cattle were butchered, those pieces of meat that didn't quite make the prime cut, like skirt steak, were handed to the vaqueros. And voila! A Texan legend was born. Number 4. Fortune cookie. It's a moment we've all waited for at the end of a Chinese meal. Cracking open that crispy, slightly sweet fortune cookie to reveal our destiny. Or at least a quirky one-liner. Funny thing though, this iconic Chinese dessert might actually have Japanese roots. The debate about its origin is a spicy one. San Francisco's Japanese tea garden says they were the first to serve it up around the start of the 20th century. But, not to be outdone, the Hong Kong Noodle Company in Los Angeles also waves the "We did it first" flag. When World War II saw the unfortunate internment of Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans stepped in to keep the fortune cookie production going. And that little cookie has since cemented its place in Americanized Chinese and Japanese dining. Number 3. Swiss steak. Contrary to popular belief, this dish's name isn't a nod to Switzerland. Instead, the Swiss part is all about the technique called Swissing, where meat is rolled or pounded to make it tender. On a budget, this dish is your friend. You take a piece of round steak, give it a good pounding, then let it simmer away in a slow cooker or Dutch oven, and then covered in delicious gravy. These methods, pounding, slow cooking, and dousing in sauce, are golden tickets to turning budget-friendly steaks into melt-in-your-mouth delights. Number 2. French roast coffee. If you've ever wandered into one of the countless specialty coffee shops dotting American streets, you'd know how everyone has their go-to brew. But there was a period when Americans generally leaned towards lighter roasts compared to their European counterparts. Then came Alfred Peet, the Dutch-American entrepreneur behind Peet's Coffee and Tea in Berkeley, California. In 1966, inspired by European flavors, he introduced what he coined the French roast. And just like that, this term brewed its way into your everyday coffee lexicon. Over the years, with its low acidity and that distinct slightly burnt taste, the French roast has certainly percolated its way into the hearts of many coffee lovers. Number 1. General Tso's chicken. This tangy, spicy delight gained traction in the US back in the 70s, but ask someone in China and you might get puzzled looks. The genius behind this dish? Chef T.T. Wang, who reportedly whipped up the recipe in 1972 at New York City's Shun-Li Palace. And now, you'd be hard-pressed to find a Chinese-American eatery that doesn't serve up this iconic dish. So, while it may not be traditional in China, it's surely found a home here. So, which dish on this list did you find most surprising? Let us know in the comments below. But that's all for today. See ya!